Okay. All right, guys. Well, welcome to, this is the February edition of the Awaken Man Community. What are we calling this? A group coaching workshop. I think it's going to be a little bit better or a little bit of a different thing every month. But in this case, it's kind of a workshop because you're going to, I'm just going to guide you through a process. And I've done this one-on-one with my clients in my performance coaching program. And it gets a lot of, it does some really cool things. It's crazy how something so simple and probably something you've even done before, at least something similar, can be so powerful. And, you know, I like one of the things that Tony Robbins says, that common sense isn't commonly practiced. And a lot of the stuff that creates huge growth in our lives is just common sense stuff. So, you know, and then there's Vince Lombardi, who, you know, is legendary for on the first day of the season, you know, talking to his professional football players who have been playing in the NFL for a while. And every time he starts out with, this is a football, you know, the basics. You know, at least that's the legend. I wasn't there, so don't know if that was really happening or not, but you get what I'm talking about. All right, so Sean and Mark, Darren, I've been told not to call on Darren. Is that true, Darren?
Well, you didn't have to share that with everybody.
Yeah, well,
you feel free
I
to
just
call me
wondering.
as much as you want, brother.
Okay, cool. All right, so just tell me, guys, where you are at with the, do you have the sheet in front of you? Are you using a notebook, paper? What are you working with there?
I'm drawing mine out.
Yeah, I got mine printed out here.
Oh, A student. Setting the bar high, Mark. Printing it out ahead of time. That's the way to do it. I like it. Sean, you still get an A- because you showed up.
That's 80% of life right there, right?
Yeah, and we'll see. I know you. We know each other for a while, and I know you're just striving for a B student anyways, right?
That's right.
That's what the smart kids do, the B student stuff, and then they try to employ the A students, right? That's the philosophy.
That's right. B students need A students and vice versa.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we're off to a great start. So this is, I'll just read the instructions real quick. For all 8 areas of your life, give yourself a rating from 0 to 10, where 0 is the center of this circle and 10 is the outside line of the circle. And rank your level of satisfaction and fulfillment in each area, and then use the margins to make notes that require explanation. I've got an old one right here. I'll show you. Got a few old ones here. All right. So here's an example of one. This is what the end product looks like. And so this is what we're going to do. We're going to fill in, we're going to color. Hopefully you brought your coloring crayons. No, it doesn't matter, but you can make it colorful if you want. And so at the, so you're going to give yourself a ranking on each one, and then you're going to fill it in so it looks nice and colorful like that. And then you see how the margins here, we just made notes for each section, like, okay, so get ready to do that. I'll walk you through this process. So let's start with, I'm going to give you enough time to do each one. I like to start with health, fitness, and energy. And let me just show you one more thing. Hang on one second. I want to show you something that kind of adds context to this whole thing. Okay. No, not that. Where's favorites? There we go. Okay. All right. Oop. Can you see this vitality, relationships, freedom, and impact? Oh, sharing is possible. Resume share. How come? Okay. What is, okay, let me try this. There we go. Now you can see it.
Yep.
All right, so this is what we call our 4 pillars of fulfillment, or 4 pillars that are needed to build fulfillment on. So it's, you know, it's a kind of a hierarchical structure, but basically we work with people who want to make an impact on the planet. You know, if you're, the reason you're here is because each one of you is called to something greater than yourself. You are compelled to serve at a higher level on this planet to make an impact in something that's near and dear to your heart. That's why you're here. That's the only kind of people I ever work with, because if somebody who didn't want to make a huge impact came and tried to work with me, they would be super annoyed with me, and I would be super annoyed with them. So it's just out there. We only work with people who want to make a huge impact. That's what we're here doing. That's what you're doing. So we're a good fit here. But in order to make a huge impact, you have to have freedom from hindrances. You can't go out and like make a huge impact if you're hindered. So we talk about freedom as the pillar of fulfillment that's required to make a huge impact. Freedom from you know, financial hindrances, time hindrances, location hindrances. Like if you don't have anything holding you back, you can make the biggest impact possible. And so freedom. And there's also like, you know, could even be, this is where healing comes in. Like what are the things, emotional wounds and mental wounds and spiritual wounds that need to be healed, that kind of freedom too. And below that is relationships, because if your relationships aren't intact, it's kind of hard to be even thinking about freedom and impact. If your relationships are like struggling, and you know, that's the biggest hindrance if you don't have the relationships going. So we always prioritize relationships over that. And in fact, relationship, and especially an intimate relationship, is a great place to you know, go on this freedom journey with. And then we put vitality at the very base level, because what we found is working with couples for, you know, a decade, if one of the things that's most important is the energy that they bring. And if somebody is complacent, if somebody, you know, is in the relationship isn't showing up with passion and energy and bringing enthusiasm, like Tony Robbins says, a relationship isn't where you go to get, it's where you go to give. You have to have that energy level at a good place, operating well, to be able to serve in that relationship. So that is just for context. Any questions on that? Comments? All right, no comments. Okay, let's go back. So I said all that to say I want to start with health, fitness, and energy, kind of starting with that vitality level and making sure we got that. So on a scale of 0 to 10, where are you at? These little markers in the middle are to kind of guide you on a halfway 5 point. So here's 5, you know, 9's up here, 10's all the way out here. So mark yourself on health, fitness, and energy. And for example, in this example here, this person indicated an 8 for their health, fitness, and energy. And that's a pretty high one. And under that, in the margin, I said, why is it an 8? Why is it doing so well? And he said he goes to the gym, he runs, he monitors that stuff. He's getting training for a half marathon. To move that to a 9 would be completing that marathon. So for this one for you, if you're not at a 10, what is holding it back? As this says, what's keeping you from total freedom? We're going to get there. So, Mark, can I use you as an example?
You want to embarrass me first?
Yeah, if you want to pass, you can, but
I don't mind. Nah.
okay,
I am
thank
what
you.
I am.
And I know you've been making progress in this area, so that's kind of what I'm thinking of. So where did you mark yourself right currently?
Actually, I still mark myself at like a 4.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, in the year 2019, what were you at some point lower? Because I'm pretty sure you have made some gains since sometime in 2019, right?
I had made some gains, and then I lost ground again.
Okay.
Yeah. So there were some scheduling things that I have not responded to well. So yeah,
Okay.
I need to get my schedule back on track.
Cool. So you put yourself at a 4 currently, and you identified that getting your schedule, making some modifications in your schedule would move you up to a 5 or a 6, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then what is it about this category that you put it at a 4? What's not feeling right, or what's qualify that for me?
Well, I don't feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm able to do pretty much whatever I need to do, but my routine is not well, and I know that you know, like just to be transparent, my wife looks at me and says, I can still see it. You got a chance. You know. So it's not like it's totally gone. I'm not totally, you know, out of shape. It's like it's almost there. I still have what it takes to get it, but I just need to put the work in. So it's like I don't feel bad. I'm not, you know, sickly or anything, but I just need to put the work in and build back what I had at once. So I
Gotcha.
don't think it would take much to get to a 6 or a 7, you know, in
Okay.
a short period of time.
Okay, good. When was the last time you were at a 6 or a 7?
Oh man, it was like June, July of last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's when you were kind of dialed in on your routine, and you were
Yeah.
making it happen. You were checking that box and following through with your commitments. And so right now you're feeling lower because you haven't been doing those things.
That's right.
All right, cool. So what is your commitment? What will you do in this area to move it up?
Just make a commitment in my schedule to just not let other things push my, you know, time at the gym and whatever. You know, I'm letting other things supersede it, and I just need to get a handle on that.
Okay, cool. And sounds like your wife is fully supportive, and maybe even a
Absolutely.
little bit of giving you a kick in the butt.
Yep.
She'll help you out the door.
Yeah. And I'm not fighting it either. I appreciate it.
All right, awesome. Yeah. All right. Anybody else, Sean or Darren, any comments you want to make or questions?
I was just going to kind of back you up on that. I think health and fitness is just such a key thing. I know in the last 6 months, the changes I've made, I attribute a lot of it to prioritizing those things.
Yeah. Yeah, and did you do this exercise back 6 months ago?
I don't recall seeing it in wheel form.
Okay.
I know that it was one of our in our the Awakened Man group that we went through, and that was like my one thing was to prioritize my health and fitness.
Okay, cool.
I had kind of identified that all these other things would be affected if I got that under control, and now that it is, I am seeing that just about every other aspect of my life is being positively affected.
Okay, cool. All right. So what did you want to make a comment, Sean, or are you good?
I'm good.
Okay. All right. So basically with Mark there, I was just demonstrating it's not good enough to just rank yourself on a scale of 0 to 10 and then draw the picture and be done. You need to think through it. You need to ask the questions in order for it to make an impact. What I do in my work is I try to get stuff out of your conscious brain and into your subconscious programming. So the way that I do that is through several techniques, but those kind of questions that drive it basically from the left brain to the right brain, or your head to your heart, or into your body, into your subconscious programming. I mean, I think all these are like kind of synonymous ways of describing, like, it's not just something that you through sheer willpower you do, but my guess is, and if I had a one-on-one session with Mark, I would even go a little deeper and get to the heart and the why. And Darren, I know, could talk to this as far as like really breaking through to like, where does this come from in your childhood? Like if we can figure out what established the pattern of not having this health and fitness and energy thing dialed in, way back when, if we can break the pattern, then it kind of just happens, right? It just kind of takes care of itself. And so all that to say that I want to get this from just a willpower thing, like, oh yeah, I should move this up from a 4 to a 5. No, not that. Just that it's so compelling. It's so like in me that I can't wait to get up in the morning and go work out, So we're not going to, in this format, go to that depth of kind of reprogramming your subconscious, but just letting you know this is the goal and the purpose of just not just putting a rating, but actually thinking through it and asking these harder questions. So I'll move a little faster through the rest of the wheel, but I just wanted to demonstrate what we're doing. Okay. And by the way, along the way, any questions or comments, I definitely feel free to interrupt. There's nothing wrong with that. All along the way. Anytime you have something to say, chime in. All right, so moving on, other trusted relationships. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna define it, give you a chance to mark your wheel, and then I'm gonna ask just general questions that come to my mind to kind of help you think through it. You can sort of ignore me and think through your own thoughts, or use my questions as prompting. So other trusted relationships, this is the category of deep friendship, because we're in a society of connection, right? On Facebook and LinkedIn, we have hundreds, thousands of connections, but we don't have depth of a relationship kind of as a society. That's just sort of where we're at these days. So it's super important that we're intentional about finding those close relationships. But I want you to think about, besides your spouse or your intimate relationships, I want you to think about those usually it's other guys, but those trusted relationships where you can disclose anything on your heart. The person that loves you enough to call you out on your crap when you're just like all over the place, to tell you how it is. If you have plenty of that in your life, you have a 10. If you have none of it, you have a 0, and then of course everything in between. So go ahead and rank yourself. Where are you at right now? And be brutally honest. Maybe you've never been at a 10 in your life. Maybe you have. Maybe you know what it feels like to have those kind of connections. Maybe you never have. Why haven't you? Have you made it a priority? What would it take, whatever you have as your ranking, what would it take to move it up to a notch or two? Like if you're at a 5, what would it take to get it to a 6 or a 7? If that becomes, if you get an answer to that, why haven't you already done that? Why haven't you already created that in your life? What's been getting in the way? So in these, to answer these questions, just make notes in the margins. All right, let's move on. When it comes to sex and intimacy, we're just talking about the reason that, I mean, a lot of these life wheels, they just say relationships. The reason that we have sex and intimacy as a singled out one is because we know that, so if you're married, instead of ranking your marriage on a 0 to 10, we want you to rank your intimacy. Sex is a part of intimacy, but emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical intimacy is what you want to rank. So if you have absolute closeness, passion, fulfillment, fully alive and connected, and there's more blissful moments than there are challenging moments, that's a 10. If you feel completely disconnected and you kind of feel alone, you know that your intimate partner is not happy with you or not connected to you and feels distant, that's a 0. And then something in between. So rank yourself 0 to 10. And then ask if you've got a 5 or a 6, say, what would it take to get it to a 6 or a 7? What would it take? What's missing in that area of your life right now that if you had it would move it up? What's been working and what's been not working? And then what is one thing you can do? Because sometimes on this stuff, you can't control the other person, right? You can't control all the variables, but there are some things that you can do. What's one thing that you have full control over that you can do to plant the seed, at least, for greater fulfillment, greater passion, greater closeness, greater connection in this area? For example, just to use an extreme example, I was working with a guy and he is actually just getting out of a relationship. And so he didn't have an intimate partner, but for him to move that up would be, working on himself as a man to be the best version of himself as he can, to attract that partner into his life. So it really didn't have anything to do with sex and intimacy. It had to do with bettering himself, reading books, getting into better shape, working on whatever it is that was holding them back in that area. All right, moving on. Fun and recreation. This is important in an awakened man's life because especially guys in my category, you know, I've got a high school, junior high, and grade school kid. Got the whole thing covered. And so married 20 plus years, all these kids, first thing to go is hobbies, right? But to be a fulfilled man, to be a fulfilled husband and father, I have to find those things that fill me up. If I'm going to my family as my only source for fun and recreation, then I'm sort of a leech and parasite, right? I need to go outside of my family and get my cup filled in the things that fulfill me. So for some guys, that's hunting, fishing, getting out into nature. Some guys, it's working out. But for you, what is the thing that lights you up, that makes you feel alive as a man? That's what I want you to figure out here. Not that, because a lot of guys in my category, husband, father, you know, we say I'm having a lot of fun and recreation, but it's always with my family. I wouldn't count that as a 10. I'm talking about what it is that you do for you. Get selfish here for a moment and think, okay, where am I at? Like, what are the things that I love to do and I haven't been doing? If you are doing the things you love to do all the time, flying helicopters and shooting guns and riding motorcycles and tipping cows, I mean, whatever it is. If you're always doing that stuff, give yourself a 10. If you're like, what? I haven't had fun in forever, give yourself a 0. But what would it take to get you to that next level? This is, don't discount this one. Don't take this one for granted. This is one that a lot of guys just let it go. But if you were to just be fully alive and do the things that bring you passion, that doesn't require your family, could be golfing, other sports. What would it take to bring more of that into your life? It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to go from 0 to 10. What's one thing you can do? In the next quarter, could you go for a hike? In the next month, could you schedule some time at the golf driving range? Could you, if it's boating, could you go look at boats and plan a budget around the boat that you want? What could you do? One thing. Identify the one thing and then write it down and we'll move on. Personal growth. What we're talking about in personal growth is we're talking about the things that make you grow mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. And so the things that go in there typically are, you know, books, seminars, stuff like this. Could be church, could be small groups. If you have all of that going on and you couldn't handle any more growth, you're at a 10. If you're like, what growth? Then you're at a 0, right? And everything in between, rank yourself, give yourself an honest, brutally honest ranking. Where are you at today? And by the way, as you're filling these numbers in, make sure you are coloring it straight across, you know, so that we get a shape of your wheel. All right, personal growth. What would it take? Do you need to get an audiobook account? You know, I think it's like $20 a month. You get an Audible. You get a book a month. And you think about the value of that. I don't know how much it is, but let's say it's $20. So it's $200 to $300 for an annual subscription, and you get the 12 best that money can buy books downloaded into your brain. That's priceless. If you're not reading a book a month, do that. So first thing I always tell people, if you think about how there's that old adage, you're only different from a year or 5 years down the road by the people you meet and you surround yourself with, and the books you read and the growth you do. So 12 months from today, if you haven't already downloaded into your brain the best books, say like How to Win Friends and Influence People, The Habits of Highly Successful People, these kind of books, if you haven't already downloaded those into your brain, 12 months from today with a simple Audible account, you could have the 12 best books in your brain, and that will make you a better person. No doubt about it. A more fulfilled person, a more giving person. Maybe it's spiritual growth you need. Maybe it's emotional growth. Maybe you need counseling. Maybe you need coaching. Maybe you need a life group. All right, so figure out that one thing that's going to move you to the next level. If you're at a 2, what's going to get you to a 3? If you're at a 8, what's going to get you to a 9? All right, purpose and career. Now, purpose and career, the way I want you to think about this is not if you have a great paying job or if you have a job, you know. What I want you to think about is how aligned to who you are as a person, your gifts, skills, and abilities, is your work that you're doing also your worship? Is your work what you would do even if you didn't get paid? If you are getting paid well and you're doing what you love, you're at a 10. If you are getting paid well but you hate it, I don't know if that's a 0, but it's down there. It's low. If you're like, I don't even know what I'm doing, it's not connected to purpose at all, rank yourself low. Somewhere in between, you can do a 5. But this is a tough one. If you are not feeling like your work is in line with who you are and what you are made to do and contribute in this planet, figure it out. What is it? Do you need to just kind of do some work and figure out what is your purpose? Do you have a 0 clue? By the way, if you're in that boat, go back to January's session that I recorded, and it's in the Wake Command community. January, we talked a bit about that, helping you find that purpose. And we'll do that some more in the months to come too. All right, so wherever you're at, give yourself a brutally honest rank, 0 to 10, and then identify what would it take to move that up 1 level or 2 levels. Physical environment. Physical environment is, just kind of like your office space, your home space, your car space, the spaces you find yourself in. Do they drain you? If they drain you, if you feel like icky in your spaces, that's a 0. If your physical environments that you put yourself in and you find yourself in make you energized, that's a 10. And so something in between is probably where you're at. What would it take? Like, what's the thing that's been, maybe you just need to paint a wall. Sometimes it just takes painting a wall. Sometimes it takes cleaning up the space. Is your garage like totally in shambles? Get it organized. Do you have way too much stuff? Because you look like one of those hoarder shows, then get some junk removal. What would it take to make your physical environment feel more conducive to your growth and your energy and your vitality? Identify that one thing, write it down, and then we'll talk about what to do next. All right, cash flow and balance sheet. Cash flow and balance sheet. The reason a lot of wife wheels, they just say, how's your financial doing? But I want to know what your cash flow and your balance sheet is, because that's more specific. I want to know, I don't care if you make $10,000 or $100,000 a year. If your cash flow, if you have if you have plenty of money coming in than the money going out, that's good cash flow, right? If you have less coming in than what's going out, that's negative cash flow. And cash flow is is like the blood to the body, right? If you're bleeding negative cash flow, if you're bleeding, eventually, if you don't stop the bleeding in your body, you will die, right? So positive cash flow gets you to that freedom, right? We want total freedom. So cash flow, and then balance sheet is related, right? So if your liabilities are like out of whack compared to your assets, if you've got a positive cash flow and a positive balance sheet, you're a 10. If you're backwards on both of those, you're a 0. And of course, you're probably somewhere in between. So identify, brutally honest, where are you at on cash flow and balance sheet? And what would it take? What's one thing it would take to get you a notch or two up? Is it an income issue? Is it related to your purpose career line? Is it a spending issue? Is it a budgeting issue? Are you and your wife on the same page when it comes to spending? You know, to just expect that you and your wife are just going to like spend and save the same is never going to happen. You have to use some tools to be on the same page. Some budgeting tools, some spending tools. What else? Could be, so conversation with your spouse, could be getting on a system that you and your spouse can use. It could be tweaking some things in your business. All right. All right, so we went around the life wheel. You should have something that looks like this. Or it could be like this one. Or it could be like this one. This one is a really tough one. Hopefully it doesn't look like that one. That's one of the harder ones. That means there's a lot of work to do. All right. If it's a nice round circle, if you got a nice round circle, that's awesome, because that means you're pretty balanced, right? If it's all 5s, you know, you got work to do, but you have a balance. But that's pretty rare. Usually there's like, okay, so here's what I want you to do now. Look at, you've got some high marks, right? Like there's a 9 right there. But see though, over here, there's like a 0 and a 2. So identify, you know, just kind of, here's what I do. I take a look at this and I think, okay, what usually happens is something stands out to you and you think, huh, everything on here kind of is related to the one thing. Like one thing on here is it could be your career's out of whack, and that's affecting your finances. It's affecting your ability to do fun and recreation. It could be your other trusted relationships. You know, let's say your intimate relationship's not going well, but it's because you don't have guys around you can go talk to, where you can get some advice and say, okay, how do I deal with my wife on this issue? You know, so I figure it out. It could be your like I showed you on that pyramid. Maybe it's the vitality is missing. You're like striving so hard to make an impact on the world, to really invest in your relationships, but you got no energy. So maybe it's the health and fitness. Like I remember one time, this was a most basic one ever, did this life wheel with a guy, and he realized his takeaway from it was he was not getting enough sleep. And he realized, I've been dealing with this pillow for like years. Like it was like, you know, over a year. He's just been like putting up with this pillow, and he hasn't been sleeping well for months and months. And he's like, I look at my life wheel and everything's pretty good, but the areas that are suffering, it has completely to do with my lack of sleep. So if I just like stop being a cheapskate and go get a sweet pillow that's going to help me sleep, my life will improve from a stupid pillow. So hopefully, you know, that's like a great scenario, right? Because that means it's such an easy fix. Just get a pillow, you know, but sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I cannot ignore this anymore. My wife and I, we haven't even, you know, touched and I know she's not happy. I need to fix this. And of course, that's going to be a lot more work than buying a pillow. But is it worth it? Heck yes. All right. So I'd love to get some feedback from you guys. Like, my question is there one thing that seems to be standing out? And that's an easy question, but the tougher question, would you be willing to share? Like, you don't have to, but if you would be willing to, it definitely, I think will help other guys on the call and anybody who's listening to the recording. Do you see one thing that would affect the whole wheel? Who wants to share?
I'll go ahead and chime in here, Scott.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, I don't see anything on my wheel that stands out as a glaring, if I fix that, the whole wheel will come into balance.
Mm-hmm.
What is standing out to me about my wheel is I'm seeing some areas that are lower than others, but it is showing me that things are close to balance, I suppose I could say. Definitely some areas that could use some improvements or could use some attention. I guess I'm taking a fair amount of comfort in this exercise also, because when we first labeled everything and everything was blank, I was like, oh God, it's like, what's in store for me here? What's going to be revealed that I'm really deficient on? And what I'm gathering comfort in is through this exercise, I'm seeing, okay, the areas that are lower, because the lowest areas that I have are 6s. I had a 6 in the health and fitness and energy portion and a 6 in the other trusted relationships portion. The comforting part of this for me was that wasn't news to me. Those were areas that I, prior to this exercise, understood that I was deficient in, and have already instigated things, within the last 30 to 60 days to change those areas. And so even though they're at a 6 today, it's in doing the rest of the exercise, it shows me that, okay, I don't have to put any more brain power into what are the other areas that I need to be concerned about, because I've already placed energy into those two number 6 areas, and the rest of the areas are doing a little bit better. So I can alleviate some mental energies from those other areas and really focus more on those health areas and those trusted relationship areas. So, and the things that I would need to do to take them from a 6 to a 7, I am already doing. And I think within the next, 30 days or whatever time period you would recommend, I would come back and reevaluate those 2 areas to say, okay, have I moved the needle on those? Have I gone to a 7 in those areas? So I guess I'll stop talking there and leave it at that.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for sharing, because that what you've illustrated as a couple of good points. One thing that I love about what you're saying is you're able to now direct more of your energy towards these things than you realized you could before. Because those areas that it's just like seeing it in a picture form, for some reason it helps, right? It's another one of those, get it from the left brain to the right brain, get it into your subconscious. But now your subconscious can say, okay, I don't have to worry about these other areas. I'm going to get super focused on this thing that I already knew was there, but now I can just like laser in on it, and that's going to help the momentum. Would you say that's true?
I'm glad you used the word momentum, because the very first thing that I was feeling when you were saying that was I am feeling energized. In terms of the health and fitness, I was already feeling energized prior to this call to work out more and run and do yoga and all those things. But now I'm like, now I really want to do it, because now I know that my brain's freed up, and I know that if I do invest more energies there, it's going to have a bigger impact overall on my whole life, not just the fitness area by itself.
Hmm. Fantastic. And this is why I love what I do, because when I hear that from a client, it's just so rewarding to know that, you know, maybe just a little bit of a spark was created in my getting out of bed this morning. But the other thing that you said that I want to hone in on is you already kind of have dialed this in, and I will say that is because, and I know a little bit of inside information. We've met recently, and you are already on an awakened man journey. Now, one thing I do when I take somebody who's like not even like, what awakened man, I never heard of it. What, you know, what does it even mean to work on yourself? What does it mean to be your best self? What does it mean to be self-aware? What does it mean to be mindful? You know, they've not even considered these questions. And I take one of these guys like in raw form, and I start, you know, taking them down this awakened man path. This exercise right here is so powerful. Even though it's basic, it's so powerful for someone to just get some awareness, because what it does is, like, in this picture form, I can't say it any better word. It just creates some awareness, like some insight. You are kind of observing yourself. And I know you've already been doing that for a while, Sean. And so that's why this is sort of just a confirmation of some work you've already been doing. And so I appreciate that.
You bet.
Cool. Anybody else want to share?
Yeah, this is Mark. Just to quantify each of these areas, it makes it more clear. I mean, you knew some things were off balance, but to see it in this picture like this, it like makes it very clear the areas that need work. And as I look at the other areas, you know, my lowest areas, you know, are very clear that something needs to be done. But when I look at it in the context of the other areas, even some areas where I feel strong, I realize I would be even stronger if I dealt with the areas where the scores were low. So it does create a sort of like a plan forward. You know, it sort of helps you lay out, okay, I sort of improve the recipe of
Yes.
what my life consists of, and this really helps me to see, you know, what ingredients need to be added. So yeah, this is good.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely connects. You connect the big picture to the one thing that needs to be worked on and focused on, and have energy directed towards it. And yeah, so it's powerful. And so, guys, I want you to think about, you know, hang on to this picture that you have now, use this as a benchmark, and think about, you know, put it on your calendar for next quarter or 6 months down the road, or at the latest 1 year from now, and do this thing again, and see where you've come, and see what now you need to work on. Because this is the thing with our lives, right? We hone in on one area, and then something else can get out of whack. And so it's not a one and done. This is something that needs to be maintained, and you need to be intentional about having this 360 view of your life, so that you can see those connections. Like, one thing affects everything else, and you can't help it. It's just the way, it's like gravity. You can try and work against it, but it's not recommended. All right, so let's turn this over, and I'm going to give you this as homework. We're running into a time crunch here. So this is a 7-level deep exercise. And what I want you to do is just if you're doing this on a piece of paper, then go to the bottom of the page and work your way up. So start at the bottom, and you're going to ask yourself the question, basically why, until you get to the thing that moves you, that connects to your heart, the first 4 levels or so are going to be very brainy, very left brain, very logical, reasonable answers. And then after you get to the level 3, 2, and 1, you're going to get a little closer to your heart. And a lot of times what happens is you get to level 3 or 2 and you're like, there's no more reason why I'm already there. It's because, you know, this is what I was meant to do. But still go that next level. You got to do it 7 times. Just trust the process. Something, you know, mystical happens when you do 7 levels. It just does. So the question is, let me read this here. This exercise can be used to help determine what really drives you to accomplish anything in life. So what really drives you? That's what we're getting at. And this is sort of like a subconscious level exercise by going through it. The following is a sample. This is one of the hardest exercises that we have to reach. Okay. So what you're gonna, based on what you found, like Mark, you mentioned one thing kind of connects the others. Sean, you also said the health and trusted relationships. So what is success for you in that? So I want you to kind of like ask yourself that question. What is it to be successful in that? And then start with level 7. Why is it important to you? So this could be, I need other trusted relationships in my life. I need to have more depth of relationship in my life. Why is it important to me? Oh, because it gives me a place where I can go and you know, share life experiences with. Okay, cool. So you write that down at level 7. Then you move up, level 6. Okay, so you said it gives you a place where you can go and share things in your life. Why is that important to you? And you say, well, because it's better to share stuff with other people than just do stuff by myself. Okay, cool. So write that down. And then why is it important? Why is it better to share with other people? Why is that important to you? So you ask yourself the question, but you just trust the process. Don't overthink it. Just write down your answer to each of those. And you'll get to a place where you understand with so much certainty and so much clarity why you need to be successful in this area. And again, we already figured out that if you're successful in this area, it affects the entire picture. So don't skip this part. It's super important. It's what takes it from a willpower thing to a subconscious programmed. It's just an automatic response. You can't wait to get out of bed in the morning and go do those exercises, or dial the phone and make that relationship happen, whatever it is. All right, any questions on that homework? Could somebody explain it back to me so that I know that it made sense?
Yeah, I actually was going to ask the question. So I picked one particular focus. Let's say, my health, fitness, and energy, and say, okay, it's important for me to become successful and to become more fit and to have more energy. And I started level 7 saying, why is that important to me?
Yes.
Because it'll enable me to be more energetic with my family, my grandkids, or whatever. Okay.
All right. So you have more energy with your grandkids. You write that down, and then you say, okay, why is that important? And then you go up to the next level.
Okay. And so each level, I just, go deeper from the previous response.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
You're looking to go deeper. Yep. So when you think about having more energy with your grandkids, you wrote that down on number 7. on number 6, why is that important to you? Why is it more important to have more energy with your grandkids?
Yeah, just to have a better relationship and to be an example that
All right.
as you get
Cool.
older, you can still be healthy.
Yeah. So better relationship and to be an example to them of health. And so you can see by asking the next level 5, you're going to get to I mean, it doesn't take very long. You start out with you're going to go work out. And by the time you're done with this, you're like, because to save the world, right?
Yeah, the planet depends on me.
Right. And what's happening from a neurolinguistic programming perspective is you're linking up the activity of going and working out and getting healthier. You're linking it up to what's really, really important in your life. And when you do that, you become unstoppable. So that's your guys' homework. We will meet again. Mark your calendar for I think so the second Thursday of each month is the time where we get together on these group calls. So the next one's going to be March 12th. So mark your calendar for March 12th, probably be about the same time next month. And I'll put it in the Awaken Man community group. Thank you guys for being here and participating. Any last comments from anybody?
No, that was great, man. That was great.
Yeah, thank you very
Thanks,
much, Scott.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for being here, guys. I'll see you soon.
Thanks, man.